Hi, I'm Theresa V, and my work is to spark the lightworkers, the world changers, the indigos, and all who feel that they are part of the change that this world needs into action. Today we're going to talk about righteous anger. This is definitely coming up in the collective, and it is begging to be spoken about. Righteous anger is anger that is justified. It's anger that's coming up in our systems in order to spark change. And it can also be anger that's coming up in the world in order to spark change. If you zoom out and look at the world objectively at this point, it's happening everywhere. There is not one person alive today that is not angry about something. And if someone tells you they aren't angry at all, then you know that they're completely disconnected from their feelings. In all honesty, anger is one of those feelings that spiritual people feel really uncomfortable with. As soon as the awareness is there, that there is anger present, we kind of peace out on the anger or try to meditate it away or shove it down because anger is not a spiritual feeling. That's not something that we've been taught can be cultivated in spirituality and used for good. But the truth is that those spiritual leaders who have had the greatest impact were able to acknowledge, honor, and harness their anger into creating incredible change spiritually, socially, and throughout the world. Think Gandhi. Think Dr. Martin Luther King. Think Rosa Parks. These are all people who became leaders by channeling their anger into something that was incredibly beautiful and needed. Anger is the catalyst for change. So when we choose to ignore that anger is present, or we try to release it without honoring it and seeing the message that it has brought to us, then we are bypassing the change that we are actually part of. And this is why we become confused about what our life purpose is. This is why we become unclear on the messages of how we're supposed to show up in the world and what it is we are supposed to assist with. Anger is the fire that precedes the rebuild. Anger is the lava flow that precedes the incredible harvest. This is the necessity of anger and its place in our lives. As spiritual sensitives, we are being called to truly embody more of our range. And what that means is embodying those emotions, honoring them, the ones we've traditionally viewed as negative. And this doesn't mean you're going to get stuck in them. What this does mean is that you're going to be acknowledging their presence and taking the pearl of wisdom that they are guiding you to. You're going to be seeing the path that is illuminated by the presence of these feelings in your life. And then what you can do is work on the channeling of those feelings into something greater than yourself. There have been so many stories that we've told ourselves for a really long time. One of them is that in order to receive and keep love, we have to be nice, sweet, palatable, friendly, all of those things and more. And this has caused us to really censor ourselves, to really shut down the things that are not in line with what we've been told we need to be in order to receive and keep love. As sensitives, the removal of love from our lives is one of our greatest fears because it wounds us so deeply. So when we know that that's the underlying fear, we can address it. And we've been really working our spirituality to be well-sourced from within, to become stronger from within, to grow to love ourselves from within. So that threat, after all of the work we've done, is no longer as strong. So it doesn't need to have such a hold on us. Another one of the stories is one we've told ourselves for so long. We are too sensitive to know what's going on in the world, that it affects us in such a great way that we are hurt and incapacitated by knowing what's going on. And that is a story that has kept us from shining our light and taking the action that the divine needs us to be taking. That has kept us from our life purpose, that has kept us from being the change that we are here to be. And while I acknowledge that the media can be very harsh, and if we immerse ourselves in it for too long, it can be super harsh, especially the way it's being used right now. But where we're being called to step up is to know what's going on in the world so that the anger can blossom in us, the compassion and love can blossom in us, and that we can know what those issues are that we are here to address. Anger is the barometer for us. It leads us directly to our life purpose. The things that make it blossom in us are the things that we need to address, to work on, and to help the world with. So, this isn't a recommendation to sit and watch the news all the time, but it is a call to say that you need to know what's going on in the world. It is important that you know so that you can direct your actions accordingly. And one of our superpowers is truth. So we are needed more than ever now when so much of the media is just showing one side of the story, so much of the media is beyond biased, it's just flat out lying. We can actually be those tuning forks that show where truth is in all of this, and we can call out the places where there is complete untruth and start shining the light on what is true, what is real, and how we can all start connecting to build from the place of truth. We have never been needed in that respect more than we are right now. But what so many of us choose to do is hide, ignore the fact that this is happening, because it's too overwhelming for us to think about being one piece of the puzzle in making this change. It's been considered too distasteful to talk about these things in mixed company. It's been something that has caused us to silence ourselves. And it's time for us, the sensitives, the lightworkers, the world changers, to really speak up. There are so many leaders who have made great changes from taking their anger, harnessing it, and making it into a movement based on dignity and love. And one of my personal favorites is Dr. Martin Luther King. When I listen to the way Dr. King spoke, I can hear the undercurrent of anger in every one of his well-chosen words. I can hear how he was transmuting that anger into a great movement that stirred people from within, that resonated with and for them. Had he just gone into that anger and spoken out of it, people would have shut their ears, they would not have been sparked, they would have been frightened, and they would have run the other way. He, for me, is one of the people that always shows me how it is that we need to channel, use, and honor our anger, and the anger of the collective. When we give people a positive place to put their anger, then things like the things we're seeing in the world happen less. Meditation, prayer, sending love, and sending light are still very important. I don't want to diminish the power of those things. And at this point, we can no longer be in a place that stops us from taking action. It is time for us to be the hands and the hearts of the divine on this planet. We are needed to be in action as well as to be in meditation and balance. It's time for those two things to meet, the grounded and the spiritual, in order to create and spark the change that's needed for us to live the way we all know that we can. It's time for us to have the difficult conversations, to be the people that talk about the subjects that have been considered taboo, because we are the people that are really good at holding the space of love and compassion so that these conversations can happen in a way where people can start to hear each other. We are also the people who have been working on boundaries, so when things start to get out of hand, we can put a stop to them. We can redirect the energy and come back to it when we are all in a better place. These are conversations that need to happen. These are ways for people to start getting their anger out so that the ears don't shut down, so that the voices don't shut down, so that the energy doesn't shut down. Because the only way things are going to change is when we start to honor and hear each other. It's time for us to take our power back, because when we dull our emotions like anger and frustration, when we ignore them, push them down, or try to spiritual them away, which is known as spiritually bypassing them, then what happens is we also dull the emotions on the other end. We dull the joy, we dull the happiness, so that we become just existing somewhere in the mid-range, and we wonder why we can't access our joy anymore. Well, it's because we can't access our anger. And that is what has been happening for so many of us for so long. We've adopted these ideals that are untrue. Just think of Kali. Kali Ma is the Hindu deity that is responsible for destruction, and what she does, in addition to many other things, is she comes in and she just destroys anything that is in the path of the truth. And she is considered to be the most compassionate goddess because she has no problem getting rid of anything that's standing in the way of you and what it is that you're supposed to be doing. If you doubt the power of sitting and meditating, then look at what Gandhi accomplished. Gandhi just sat, and he changed the entire world just by sitting. But what do you think it was that made Gandhi sit in the first place? It was his anger. It was his compassion for people. It was the ways in which people were being violated that stirred him to action. And this is another way for us to look at embracing the anger and using it as the catalyst in the way that we feel called to show up and use it. Unfortunately, there is no real template for this. This is a completely new energy that's happening on this planet. We're in a completely new paradigm. So we are actually the people who are leading this change of living in this way from moment to moment. But we can look to the people who have done it before in their time with the energy of the planet then to start building a template from there and then adjusting and tweaking as we go along. It always helps for us to see what's been done before so that we can garner those truths, so that we can see the empirical evidence that this has worked and we can go forward with more certainty so that we don't have those moments of doubt as often. One important thing that I don't want to leave out is that anger begets creativity. When our anger is stifled, our creativity is stifled. Very often, anger leads to creative solutions. Anger leads to music. Anger leads to paintings. Anger also leads to depression when we don't actually express it, when we don't let it leave our bodies. Creative solutions cannot happen if we are not acknowledging the fullness of our range.